Welcome to the Midweek Meditation. I'm Bob Zanicki, the pastor of the First Presbyterian Church in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. Today is Thursday, February 18th, 2021. We are in the midst here with a snowstorm, and right now it's not too bad, but my understanding is it's going to continue for some time yet, and you might hear the snowblower outside endeavoring to clear the walks. So anyhow, it's good to be back with you. And you probably all know this. Yesterday was Ash Wednesday. And so we have begun the season of Lent within the Christian church. And this coming Sunday will be the first Sunday of Lent. And let me give you, and I'm going to read this so I get it exactly right. Since AD 325, we Christians celebrate Easter on the first Sunday that occurs after the first full moon following the vernal equinox. Got that? Easter will always be celebrated between March 22nd and April 25th. Easter varies then, as you know, it moves around. And this particular Easter is much earlier. And so we'll be looking at Easter in the early part of April. So, but nevertheless, we have now begun to go through this season of Lent. Now, Lent is a time of reflection. Over the centuries, Christendom developed an annual calendar to unite and give guidance to the faithful followers of Christ. With the dissipation of Christendom, we today, especially of the Protestant Reformed culture, makes less of the season of Lent, although in the last several generations, many of, especially the mainline, which is part of Presbyterian, the mainline churches have begun to uplift Lent a bit more, not nearly to the way that our Roman Catholic friends do. But nevertheless, we are taking more cognizance of it because, again, it does fit well into a calendar, a yearly remembrance, just as we do more and more over the generations as Protestants with Advent. Okay, so we've learned some good things from our Roman Catholic brothers and sisters. But we are going to be recognizing the season of Lent as we begin this coming Sunday morning. And what's called the lectionary. Now, the lectionary is a set of Bible readings dealing with the sections of the Bible, the Hebrew, the Old Testament, the New Testament, which would include the Gospels, the Epistles, then back to the Old Testament with the Psalms, that there are verses that are picked out for a three-year cycle, whereby they fit the church calendar year, such as Lent. So again, some of us, like myself, I don't follow the lectionary very often, but I have gotten to following it especially during Lent and Advent, because again, it just fits so well. But so the majority of Christian churches throughout the world will be, with this first Sunday of Lent, will be looking at in the Gospels, and specifically through the synoptics, the first three, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, as they're often referenced together because they are similar synoptic, that the reading this Sunday will deal with the wilderness and the temptations of Jesus after he's baptized by John in the Jordan, and then he travels into the wilderness of temptation. And so again, hundreds of millions of Christians throughout the world will be hearing basically the same story. Okay, so I thought today I would just spend a few moments somewhat explaining, but also bringing out these these truths, or these ways of considering life through this season of Lent, with the beginning of Jesus after his baptism, the great baptism. He's down in the water and he comes up, and the Spirit of God is upon him. And what happens after he has this high moment, this high point in his life? Okay, well, he goes into a wilderness. And a wilderness means kind of a desolate place, a lonely place. And it also means, as I've shared over the years, the wilderness idea within the Bible references it's a place you go through, but it's not a place that you stay. It's not a place that you're to live in. So in other words, we will go through our wilderness times. Individuals, societies, cultures will go through those times, but the intent is not to stay there. You will go there, get through it, and move on. So the three synoptic Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, again, reference this story. They have it all in all three of those Gospels. We consider Mark to be the first Gospel that was composed, and then maybe around 60, give or take, of the Common Era, AD 60, and then Matthew, and then Luke. Matthew and Luke between 75 and 85 of the first century. And so there is also a developing narrative as we read through these. So let me start with Mark, because Mark is the earliest. Okay? In those days, Jesus came, this is Mark chapter 1, verse 9. In those days, Jesus came from Nazareth of Galilee and was baptized by John in the Jordan. Straightforward. That's the way Mark is. The word immediately shows up a lot in Mark's gospel, because it's like, get it done. There it is. And when he came up out of the water, Jesus, immediately, he saw the heavens opened and the Spirit descending upon him like a dove. And a voice came from heaven, "Thou art my beloved Son, with thee I am well pleased." The Spirit immediately drove Jesus out into the wilderness. That's the pericope, that's the chapter, that's the story as given in Mark's gospel. Then it says, though, after that, and he was in the wilderness 40 days, tempted by Satan, and he was with the wild beasts, and the angels ministered to him. Now, those of you that are familiar with the story of the wilderness, you might be wondering, is that it? Okay, the Spirit quickly drives him into the wilderness, and he was there 40 days, tempted. And angels ministered to him. That's that. Okay. No context of content of how was he tempted. Well, let's go to Matthew, which that particular writing shows up some 25 years later or so, depending on how you want to interpret that, but somewhere around there. Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit. This is after the baptism. Then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. It doesn't say was driven like Mark does, but Matthew says, and Jesus was led by the Spirit. And he fasted 40 days and 40 nights, and afterward he was hungry. And the tempter came to him and said, "If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread." But Jesus answered, "It is written." Jesus references the sacred scriptures. They're scriptures, they're ways of understanding God through the written word. And the tempter said again, "If you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread." Jesus says, hey, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Well, that one didn't work, okay? So it says the devil took him to the holy city, Jerusalem, and set him on the pinnacle of the temple, way, way up high, okay? And said to him, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down, for it is written, he will give his angels charge of you. And on their hands they will bear you up, lest you strike your foot against a stone. And Jesus said to him, again, it is written, you shall not tempt the Lord your God. Well, didn't work either. Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and the glory of them. And he said to him, all these I will give you, if you will fall down and worship me. Then Jesus said to him, begone, Satan, for it is written, you shall worship the Lord your God, and him only shall you serve. Jesus knew his Bible. He knew the great value of the scriptures, of this way of living and learning how to live. It says, then the devil left him, and behold, angels came and ministered to him. That's similar to Mark, where he says at the end, and the angels ministered to him. Okay? But all of a sudden now from Mark, there were no explicit temptations, but rather he was tempted. In Matthew, we now have 3 specific temptations, and Jesus passes all 3 with flying colors. But Mark has Jesus being driven into the wilderness by the Spirit, and Mark does, and then Matthew has him being led. So let's go to the third synoptic, to Luke. And Jesus, full of the Holy Spirit, returned from the Jordan, and he was led by the Spirit of God. So he and Matthew are of a similar ilk in terms of this particular part of the story. And in point of fact, we see that there seems to be there is a coherence between Matthew and Luke, and therefore there's a strong feeling among scholars that Matthew and Luke did have another source that they used as writing these accounts, and the same source. They were using the same source for this in general. So it says, was led by the Spirit for 40 days in the wilderness, tempted by the devil. That's all congruent. And he ate nothing in those days, and when they were ended, he was hungry. I love that, hadn't eaten for 40 days and says he was hungry. Yeah. The devil said to him, if you are the Son of God, command this stone to become bread. And Jesus answered him, what? It is written, man shall not live by bread alone. And the devil took him up and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. And he said to him, to you I will give all this authority and their glory, for it has been delivered to me, and I give it to whom I will. If you then will worship me, all shall be yours. And Jesus answered him, it is written, you shall love the Lord your God, and him only will you serve. Now, I don't know if you picked it up, but Matthew and Luke, the first temptation is the same. But when you get to the second and third, they're twisted, they're moved from the second one is moved to the third and opposite. Okay. Jesus said again, you shall not tempt the Lord your God. Again, the devil took him to a very high mountain. Oops, I'm lost my place here. In Luke, and he took him to Jerusalem and set him on the pinnacle of the temple and said to him, if you are the Son of God, throw yourself down from here, for it is written, he will give his angels charge of you to guard you, and on their hands they will bear you up, lest you strike your foot against a stone. And Jesus answered him, you shall not tempt the Lord your God. And when the devil, again, all 3 temptations, same, different order, variants of some words, and when the devil had ended every temptation, he departed from him until an opportune time. Now, out of the 3 accounts that I've just shared with you, Mark, Matthew, and Luke, this Luke one is interesting in that it adds this one phrase at the very end of this pericope, he, referring to the devil, departed from Jesus until an opportune time. And I don't know, for those of us, we humans that understand what it means to be tempted, and often to be able to withstand the temptation and go on, sometimes not. But the fact is the temptations never seem to end. They come in many guises, many forms. And so it's kind of a realistic addition here on that level where it says the devil lost this time, but he left